Hi, I'm Ramona Wall, and I'm a volunteer with the Glen DeBaeremaeker campaign. I have Glen with me today. Glen is running for Scarborough City Councillor, Ward 8. Glen, welcome here.
Thank you.
I'm sure some of our viewers have heard of you. To others, you may be a new face. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Certainly. Again, my name is Glen DeBaeremaeker. I have lived in Scarborough my entire life. I have been very, very active, probably in every single corner of the city, working with ratepayers and working with community groups to represent their interests at City Hall. I guess my two main areas would be focusing on economics with a master's degree in economics. I've done a lot with the property tax reform fight. I've helped hundreds of people appeal their property taxes. As vice chairman as well, I guess the other area of concern that I've been putting a lot of time into has been the environment. Protecting green spaces. As vice chair of Save the Rouge Valley System, I've done a tremendous amount of work with thousands of people in Scarborough, making sure that we got Canada's largest urban park created within our own city.
Okay. If elected councillor for Ward 8, where do you plan to focus your efforts?
I guess overall my efforts would be, one, to work for the people who elect me. There's a lot of people at City Hall that go there to rub elbows with the rich and famous. I have worked extensively with community groups in the past, and my objective at City Hall will be to work for the local residents. I guess the main areas would be property taxes and tax reform and tax freezes, making sure we have safe streets, making sure that we protect all the green spaces in Ward 8, making sure we help seniors live in their homes. Those would be the areas that I would really focus on.
Okay. A lot of people are, excuse me, a lot of politicians are promising to freeze taxes. What makes you different?
I guess I've got a track record, whereas again, anyone can say anything, and I believe that action is louder than words. And I have actually worked for Councillor Doug Mahood at City Hall for the last 4 years, the former budget chief. I helped Doug when he brought in the very first tax freeze that the City of Scarborough had in 17 years. And when we first brought in that tax freeze, a lot of the staff said to us, the world will end if you have a tax freeze. Well, we've proven them wrong. We've had now 3 tax freezes, and I've been there on the front lines learning how to freeze taxes and still provide good services to residents. As well with taxes, I have personally helped hundreds of people appeal their property taxes, because as you know, the way the assessment system works, people in downtown Toronto pay less taxes than the people in the city of Scarborough, and I have gone out and helped hundreds of people appeal their taxes. So I guess I have a proven track record, and I know how to fight taxes and how to win.
Okay, thank you. I know another strong issue for you is absentee landlords. Is there anything we can actually do about these kinds of people?
Yes, there is. Now, it's very frustrating. Like speaking from personal experience, if you have an absentee landlord next to you or down the street, you will live through a nightmare. And I have worked very, very hard at City Hall to try and change that. The way the City of Scarborough system works now is inefficient. If you have an absentee landlord that lets the weeds grow to 4 feet high, the day that you give them a notice of violation, they've got 30 days to clean it up. After 30 days, we give them another notice, and they've got another 30 days, and then we have to take them to court. Sometimes it'll take 8 months to get somebody to cut their grass. I've been working very hard, and I want to continue to work very hard to change the system so that we can give somebody a notice of violation that they have to clean up their property. If it's an absentee landlord, they've got 7 days to fix that problem. If they haven't fixed it after 7 days, the city will go and do the work and put the bill on their taxes. And that's a way that we could really make a big change in terms of absentee landlords. Now that takes legislation and that'll take time, but that's the only way we can go. We can't let people get away with murder, and these absentee landlords, again, are a nightmare, and I will crack down on them personally. I will chase them down. I will find out where they live. I will find out their phone numbers. I will give them personal calls in the night to make sure that they live up and keep their responsibilities to our communities.
Okay. I know a lot of people are also concerned about crime in Ward 8. Can we eliminate it?
No, we cannot eliminate crime in Ward 8. Crime is an incredibly important issue, and Ward 8 is one of the most beautiful communities in all of Scarborough, and because it's beautiful and because people take care of their properties, unfortunately, we attract a lot of thieves. There's a lot of theft in the area, and again, there's a lot of violence. We can't eliminate crime, but what we can do, City Hall can do several things. First of all, I can go as a councillor straight to the Police Services Commission. I've been already working with community groups to help us get more police, to fight for more police in our area, because Scarborough has been shortchanged in terms of the number of officers in the city of Scarborough. So one is to get more police. Two is to support the police. We have to invite the police into our communities and work with them and help them and let the police know that they're appreciated, because it makes their job a lot easier. Another thing, of course, that I'd like to do is make sure that we have safe street seminars all throughout the ward, so that people can meet safety experts and the police eye to eye and talk eye to eye about personal safety and about home safety. That's another thing that we can do. Finally, there's a program out called the Eyes and Ears program, where hopefully in a couple of years we can get all city staff, the garbage men, the blue box people, the people who fix your streets, the people who pick up your yard waste, the people who work at recreation center, all those people can be specially trained, given a special number that the public doesn't have. So if they see 4 teenagers jump your fence and go into your backyard, when they know that there's something funny going on, they can call this police hotline, beep, 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 and the police are there in 2 minutes. And that will make a fundamental difference to the safety and security in our communities. So no, we can't eliminate crime, we never will, but we can minimize it, and there's very specific ways that actions we can take to make sure that happens.
There are also a lot of seniors in Ward 8. What do you propose to do for them at City Hall? Is there anything that...
Absolutely. Again, working at City Hall for 4 years, seniors and veterans and pensioners, they've paid their dues. Us who are out there working and, we have higher incomes, seniors have paid their dues, they've raised their kids, they've paid their taxes, they take care of their properties, and now what they find is that they have limited incomes, and if taxes keep going up, we will literally force seniors out of their homes. So first of all, one of the things that we can do is freeze taxes. Plain and simple, it can be done, and I know how to do it. We freeze taxes, which means that we're not eating up the seniors' income all the time. Second of all, again, there's a free sidewalk shoveling services that we can provide for people. That's something that I will continue to support, that will stay there. As well, we can work with a lot of the different agencies to make sure that seniors can stay independent and comfortable in their homes. As well, again, sometimes people get power of attorney, and we can talk about reverse mortgages. People shouldn't be forced out of their home into substandard housing or into environments that are totally alien to them. If you've lived in your house for 20, 25, or 30 years, you should not be forced out. And that's something that's very dear to my heart, and that I will work very hard at City Hall to make sure that seniors stay in their homes and continue living independently in their homes, and that the city helps them do that.
Okay, well, that sounds interesting. Is there anything you want to say to sum up that people should think about before they go to vote on November 14th?
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things. I think that I'm very confident that if you compare my track record with anyone else's track record, that you will say, this is the person who has worked very hard for us. He's worked with community associations and residents in every single corner of the city of Scarborough to help them fight for their interests, and that if we invest our vote with him, he will work very hard for us. And I'd like to emphasize to people that voting is extremely important. Please, every single person, you have to vote. Whether they chop down the town center woodlot, whether they save the Rouge, whether they fight absentee landlords, whether they go after property tax reform, that all happens at City Hall. And if you don't vote, you lose. So we have to make sure we have good representatives at City Hall. So please vote. Finally, I'd like to say that, again, I'm not a miracle worker. I will not solve all of Ward 8's problems. I will not make all sorts of promises. All I can say to people is, I will work very hard for you. You're the taxpayer. When I'm at City Hall, I'll make sure all the bureaucrats remember who's paying their salaries, and that's the taxpayer. And I'd like to finally say that if people have questions that they'd like to ask me, please call me at the election office, which is the telephone number is 261-0866. That's 261-0866, and I'd be more than happy to talk to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramona.
Hi, my name's Steve Gilchrist, co-host of Trillium Cable's weekly political affairs show, Roundtable. With me today is Mr. Paul Calandra. Paul is running for the Scarborough Council position in Ward 9. Good afternoon, Paul.
Hi,
Glad you
Steve.
could join me. Paul, I guess, is a longtime resident of Scarborough, 17 years, I believe, and 10 years in Highland Creek. What are the issues that have motivated you to get involved in this very serious race for a Scarborough Council position?
Well, there's a lot of issues that face the people, and as we've been out there knocking on doors and listening to people, you hear the constant concerns. It's people are concerned about their safety, their children's safety, concerned about the direction of the city, high property taxes, and even the values of their homes. And it's about time we started looking at the problems and face them down and got some solutions.
Well, Paul, you've been kind enough to bring along a copy of your brochure, and I see there are 3 points in particular you emphasize. Let's deal with them one at a time. The first one is crime issues. Perhaps you could elaborate a bit on where you stand on that problem.
Well, we think it's time to get aggressive in fighting crime, and there's a lot we can do here in the city level ourselves. And I think one of the first things we should do as a new council is update the noise bylaw. The current bylaw from 1975, it's old and useless, and it needs to be updated. And a new bylaw should allow the police to deal with these out-of-control house parties, these after-hour clubs that have been springing up in Scarborough, and that's what the bylaw should allow police to attack. It's that kind of problem that the new noise bylaw should face down. But there's other concerns as well. We've said that I'll become very aggressive in supporting the Metro Councillor and trying to increase policing in the area, in getting a 3rd police station built for East Scarborough, which is of the primary importance. The communities, Highland Creek, even Guildwood, Centennial, in the West Hill area, they need a new police station. And the policing that goes with that, and we'll fight aggressively to make sure that we get that in Scarborough.
You've got one interesting point I don't think I've ever seen proposed before, and that's police involvement in all new developments planned.
Yeah. Well, what we propose to do there is physically bring the police the plans and let them see them before a development takes place. Architects, sometimes they just forget things, or they don't know things that the police know. For instance, a hidden corner or a parking lot in the back of a building that's cut off. And police quite often can look at the plans and make recommendations, and we can avoid problems before they occur. And it won't cost us a cent to do, and I think it's a good way to start getting to the basics and the root problem of crime in the area.
Excellent point. Well, that leads us into your second point, renewal and development, talking about police involvement, but you have a number of other points. You believe this is an important enough issue to put in your brochure. What are some of the points you deal with there?
Well, it's a very important issue, especially in this community right now. We have to assure that any new development in the area is going to conform with the existing area. If I can single out one issue in particular, is the John Mansville, or the now Manson Insulation Project. That's a proposal for a number of high-density homes in the area, but the infrastructure for the area was built on single-family residential. It can't support this kind of a project. And what we're saying is, before a project goes ahead, let's make sure it conforms with the existing area for one. Let's make sure that the infrastructure is in place, sewers, roads, schools, policing, and recreational facilities before a project. It's the wrong thing to do to put a project in and then say it'll be upgraded after, because it just won't happen. In this area, it will be hard hit by that, but we have to make sure that these kind of things are in place throughout the city. And it's not just Ward 9, it's throughout the city. We have to be more intelligent, and as I said earlier, let's involve the police in the planning of these things before it takes place. That's the kind of approach that we want to bring to it.
Excellent. You also talk about speeding the application process and upgrading older properties through tax credits.
Yes, yeah. Well, we think a good way of attracting business into the city of Scarborough and proper development is to speed up the process. City approval or rejection, it shouldn't take more than 6 months. At the utmost, it shouldn't take longer than that. And if we can speed that up, but do it properly, then we could encourage proper development. As far as upgrading older properties, you know, it goes into the image of the city. People drive around and they see properties crumbling. Let's give these people, you know, the plazas, for instance. There's a lot of plazas that are old and crumbling and buildings that need updating. Let's give them incentives to upgrade those properties. It'll do a heck of a lot for our image. And another point we did bring up was giving inspectors concise guidelines and timeframes and the resources they need to deal with homeowners, developers, and businesses who violate our bylaws and help create a poor image of the city.
So on the one hand, be more proactive in encouraging development, but for those that take the wrong steps, be prepared to take tough action against them.
Exactly.
I guess there's a big question when it comes to property taxes and issues like that certainly is on almost everybody's lips every week on our TV show, and that's market value assessment. And where do you stand on that?
Well, I am plainly in favor of market value assessment, and we should encourage it and get down there and fight for it as hard as we can.
Do you think that as a Scarborough councillor that you'll be able to have an impact in that debate?
I hope so, but it's more the market value assessment if I can. We have to look into everything, a line-by-line approach to budgeting, and you know, I applaud the city in keeping the budget down low, but nobody can afford the current tax burden, so let's make sure we look at it. And I said 6 months after elected, I'll outline proposals to fight the budget and make sure it stays down.
Well, that's a good segue into your third point, which is taxation. You mentioned reviewing all city expenditures and consolidation where possible. What are some examples or some ideas in terms of consolidation?
Well, what we should look at is the city, the Board of Education and Public Utilities, see where there's duplication between us all and start sharing resources and the simple, what we can take care of within our city itself. Let's look at those things and take care of it. For instance, cutting the grass. We all have our own crews that go out and cut grass. Let's see if it can't be done cheaper, if we share that burden. And it goes on and on and on. And let's find out where there's duplication within our city. Let's eliminate it. And that's the way we're going to go about making sure there's no increases in property taxes. And that's the way we're going to go about making sure that we can bring property taxes down.
You have another item in your pamphlet, grants only where the city benefits. By this, do you mean business grants, arts grants, cultural grants, that sort of thing?
Business grants, arts grants, so on. But what we think we should do also is set priorities every year on how the grants are distributed. First of all, let's set guidelines on who gets grants and why, but let's set priorities. Maybe this year a priority might be crime. Let's give grants to those organizations that are out there helping to attack the root causes of crime. And every year, let's set priorities on it, and that's who should get the grants. But let's make sure the city benefits. If the city doesn't benefit, then there should be no grant given out.
There's no doubt that many people maintain that the city has certain jobs it should do, and it shouldn't be in the business of things that the provincial and federal governments do. So it sounds like you're clearly in favor of the city sticking to its knitting. Then is that a fair?
Well, exactly. It's more of it's been used a lot, a back to basics approach. But let's make sure that we do what we're supposed to do, and let's do it right, and let's not stick our noses where we don't belong.
Are you confident that in our current economy that you'd be able to propose and, if not guarantee, a zero tax increase or better?
Well, we have no choice. We have absolutely no choice but to bring budgets forward with a zero tax increase. And whatever we have to do, we'll make sure it gets done because nobody can afford to pay more.
Well, Paul, we're down to our last few seconds here. If you care to sort of sum up your campaign in a couple of sentences for the voters in Ward 9.
Well, Steve, we promise to be responsive to the needs of the people and the communities. We'll never get caught up in things that we're not supposed to get caught up in, and we'll always listen to the people in the community associations, and we'll be a strong voice, and we won't flip-flop on the major decisions.
Well, best of luck. Look forward to seeing the turn of events on election night, and I hope everyone takes the time to go out and exercise their franchise. This is your most important role municipally every 3 years, and I applaud Paul and the others in the race, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
I'm here today with Tony Lamanna, one of the 3 candidates seeking a seat at Scarborough Council in the Ward 9 area. Tony, if I were to drive through Ward 9 right now, the one thing that hits me, almost knocks me over, are all these Tony Lamanna signs. They seem to have come up from nowhere. Who is this Tony Lamanna?
Well, this Tony Lamanna hasn't just popped out of nowhere. I have been in the community for the last 22 years, worked and lived in the community.
In Ward 9?
In Ward 9. I have been a member of the Community Association for a number of years. I also have been involved with children coaching in soccer.
Uh-huh.
And I've been involved in a lot of
So
the
you've been
community.
around then, right?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
I have, definitely.
Okay, but you, after 22 years, 23 years, why now? Why you suddenly decided that, you know, you're going to seek a seat at Scarborough Council?
Well, I'm pretty tired of what's going on. It's obvious with the community, what's going on, and the crime and the overpopulated. And,
Okay, you mentioned crime. Everybody's brochure has crime on it. What is Tony Lamanna going to do for us where
Well,
crime is concerned?
Well, first of all, we need to police visibility.
Well, one of your opponents claims he's opened the police station.
Well, my opponent claims a lot of things. So when he claims that he opened the police station, but that when things that don't go their way, claims that it's a metro or some other level of government.
Are there
duty to
police
do.
in the police station?
Very, very few. It's if you have a problem, it takes an average of 40 to 50 minutes each
To
call.
get help, yeah.
Definite.
You know, you pick up the Scarborough Mirror or any newspaper, and all you hear about is the youth in Scarborough holding up, you know, at Becker's or wherever.
Well, that is part of the crime problem, because I think the youth they should have a lot more youth programs, start from when they're young, involved in different community.
That's all well and good, but who's going to pay for this?
Doesn't take a genius to figure out all the money they're wasting. They could be.
Well,
using-
nobody's figured it out yet. Let's
Well, I think somebody should figure out, and that they
So where are we going to get this money from?
by saving all the money they're wasting by going to trips to Japan and all the other
Did I
wasted.
pay for them to go to Japan?
Yes, so we sure
Oh.
pay to go to Japan.
Let's get on to taxes. I don't know about you, but I've had enough. I don't want to see another raise in taxes.
Well, I think Scarborough's the highest city in metro in Texas, and I think it's a lot of waste. And again, we have built like two roads, Metro and Scarborough, which they have no communication whatsoever, and everybody pulls their own site, and they should get together. Either Metro should have an office in Scarborough that they can communicate and see what they have to do, pull in one unit, either amalgamate or they should separate it, because we don't need.
I like that, amalgamate or separate. Have you told them that yet?
Well, I've certainly for it, because I think it's a lot of wasted having two bodies there doing the same thing or pulling away from each other.
One of your opponents also claims that he's responsible for the reduction in density in Ward 9.
Well, it's they say that it's drastically reduce. I think that it's a drastically wrong what's going on down there, because those houses, they should never be built.
Okay, where are
to
these
start.
houses that you're talking about?
Well, the houses on Manville asbestos waste, and of course,
That dreaded word, asbestos. Is there asbestos there?
Of course, it's asbestos. They have a clean bill of health from whatever, but we have been through the properties, and it's loads of asbestos.
And yet we have schools that are
And we
being
have
proposed
schools.
in that area.
And well, we also have two schools across the street from it that they are already existing. And when they start digging, the asbestos is going to fly all over, and we are
That's a problem.
in big danger. Also, the opponents say they're drastically reduced. Well, I think the developer were a lot kinder to us than the city of Scarborough, along with the local council, because they reduced the density a lot more than what the city done for us.
What about Ontario housing? Everybody
Well-
gets up at every meeting and complains, you know.
Well, to this day, we haven't heard our local politician argue with anybody, or haven't read that he had a fight with anybody trying to stop this nonsense. And I think they should do something about it. And here I am. That's why I'm running to.
You sound mad.
Well, of course I'm mad because I have 2 children and the community's been very good to me, and I'd like to put something back in the community.
At your first public appearance, somebody accused you, quite vehemently I might add, of being nothing more than a developer. How do you defend that?
Well, that's silly because it's like if you paint your house a few times, or if you paint, they give you a title as a painter. And of course, I have invested in real estate over the years, and I have selling a few pieces of properties, but they all have been 50-foot frontage. And I think if a local politician were to stick with that, we had no problem. Wouldn't have the problem we have in Scarborough right now.
So there's no conflict of interest there then?
Conflict of interest, well, that's only a conflict of interest if you apply to divide anything. And at that point, I would also make sure that I would claim that it's be a conflict of interest, and I will walk out of the room. First of all, a conflict of interest of if I run for an office, that will not help me winning or losing for that matter, because
some people don't seem to realize that, because that question keeps coming up.
You lose both ways. Winning or losing, you would lose because of the conflict of interest. So at this point, I have no intention of developing anything.
Your brochure also mentions protecting the ravines and the waterfronts. Explain that.
Well, it's again with the houses that have been proposed in Manville area. They were supposed to be after the waterfront study done by Scarborough.
I heard about that. What happened to it?
Well, I don't know what happened to the waterfront study from Scarborough, but the houses are sure going on, and we have not heard anything about Scarborough study.
It was done?
Well, supposedly, but I don't know what happened to it. And it was a study done by the province and the federal government.
We just don't know what happened in the study, right?
Well, that one was some proposed, but the development was supposed to go after the study, and it decided exactly what to do with the study.
Yeah.
But we haven't heard anything, and the development is still going on now.
If on November the 14th you're elected to Scarborough Council for Ward 9, what do you think would be your greatest contribution to the job?
Well, I think it's about time Scarborough being run as a business, not as a policing politician. And I've been in business in Scarborough for the last nearly 30 years. I can bring that experience to Scarborough. And I'm not there for my own benefit. I'm there to do something for the city.
Well, you're going to have your job cut out for you.
Oh, definitely. It's a hard work. And I started, when I came in this country, I was 15. And
so you know what hard work and fighting is all about.
And I can do it again.
Tony, all the very best. Good luck at Election Day. Please come out and vote.
Hi, I'm Steve Lawton, and I'm here today to have a conversation with City Councilor candidate for Ward 11, Mr. Chin Lee. Chin, how are you today?
Very well. Thank you for interviewing me.
Very happy to do so. Well, can you start by telling me why it is you'd like to be a city councilor? It sounds to me like a job that requires a lot of responsibility.
I don't think it's a job, I think it's a commitment. And the reason why I'm making this commitment is because I'm a very concerned citizen, and I'm very concerned about the caliber of representation we have at City Council. Based on some of the decisions they have made, particularly with regards to market value reassessment, with the $27 million tennis center, with Thompson Place, I sometimes wonder whether some of them have the ability to do analytical and independent thinking, or they're just following a whole crowd of other people that have special interest in their minds.
I see. So there's really some of those key issues, the development issues, the market value assessment issues. Well, I'm wondering if you've had these concerns, have you been involved in doing anything about them?
Yes. When I moved into Scarborough 9 years ago, and I discovered how unfair the property tax system was, I basically became involved with a group that formed SHAF, Scarborough Homeowners Alliance for Fair Taxes. And since 1988, I've been the president of the group. When we started, we filed 1,100 appeals, and then in 1986, we filed a Supreme Court case charging that the Assessment Act was unfair and against the Charter of Rights. And since then, the property tax situation has dragged on, and I believe that due to the lack of representation, they have not given us a fair shake. In 1992, the issue again came up at Metro Council. And when it came up at Metro Council, we organized, and I touched base with a lot of people in Metro, including Etobicoke, North York, and a lot of people in Scarborough. Some of the people in Scarborough involved with it, especially in Ward 11, were Michael Delgrand and Frank Leone, who helped me distribute some flyers, and which helped to organize this drive as well. And we approached Scarborough Council at that time to get their support, and we only got a very lukewarm reception. And based on that, the lukewarm reception, we had to do a lot of work ourselves and organized and got people down to Metro Hall. We chartered buses, and we had the support of a few councillors. The councillors were Councillor Mahood, Parkinson, Montgomery, and Metro Councillor Cho. And with their help, we were able to organize and sort of won a partial victory for market value assessment. However, the province turned it down, and we lost everything.
Has nothing been done to help people who are paying too high taxes because of assessment?
Well, due to our constant pressure on the governments, I believe that they have, in 1993, early part of 93, they sort of redefined the word vicinity in the Assessment Act. And the word vicinity now encompasses a bigger area. And due to that redefinition, 52,000 property owners in Scarborough became eligible for tax reductions. And those tax reductions carries on in future years as well. Now, it was Scarborough's responsibility, Scarborough Council's responsibility to inform people, which they did, but it was each individual councillor's responsibility to concentrate efforts on their own constituents in their own wards to inform them and to make sure that they got just reductions. However, some councillors did not work very hard at it, and as a result, many people did not appeal and therefore did not get the fair reductions.
I see. So when you say you see it as commitment, not a job, you're talking about providing services to people in Ward 11.
Yes, in Ward 11 and as a whole in Scarborough, because Ward 11 only forms one of 14 wards in Scarborough.
Well, can you tell me some other issues besides the tax issues that you've been involved in?
Yes, I was involved with Palmerston Place. That's a development at Markham and Shepherd. And that development, when it came to about, some of the issues that I remember about that development was that it was way over density. It exceeded the Scarborough official plans for density. And another aspect of that development that strikes my mind is that the developer was going to contribute only $5 million towards a $45 million upgrade in transportation. And one other aspect that I remember, if my memory doesn't fail me, is that the original proposal included a library shell for the library board. And in the final, the outcome of that, only $400,000 was donated in lieu of the library shell. So it may end up costing our Scarborough taxpayers a lot more money. That was. And another recent development was the $27 million tennis center. Why are we approving a development which cost $27 million, and with added additional costs of moving the service yard that's presently at that location, plus the infrastructure stuff that has to be built around the tennis center. Okay. The $27 million, my understanding, is that only is the construction cost of that tennis center. And the operating cost has not been even considered. So instead of concentrating on the actual infrastructure building, they are building a tennis center that's going to be used only 15 days of the year. Oh. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I can tell you're very concerned about the proper use of public funds and seeing that it's spent in the right area. Perhaps we could hear something about you personally, though. You say you've been here 9 years. Tell me something else about your family, if you would.
Well, I've been here in Scarborough 9 years, and I've got 2 children, a boy age 8 and a girl age 11. And currently I'm employed in a major retail organization, a Canadian company, in the enterprise technology services area, which encompasses computers and information technology. And besides that, I'm a graduate of York University in Ryerson.
So you'd bring a lot of technical and administrative skills to the job as well?
Yes.
Okay, are there any last words that you'd like to close with to the people in Scarborough?
Yes. I would like to thank you for joining us today, and it's my sincere hope that you will go out and vote on November 14th, and that you would vote for true leadership and dedication, and you will vote for me, and
I think that you've certainly given us a lot of reasons so that on November 14th, the voters of Scarborough and Ward 11 will go out and vote for Chin Lee.
Yes, and it would be an honor for me to represent you as your city councillor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Best
Thank you very
wishes.
much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity of letting me into your homes. I'm seeking candidacy as City Councillor in Ward 11. My name is Don Lombardi. Let me introduce myself to you. Lorraine and I have been married for the past 22 years. We have 3 wonderful children, Christopher, Andrew, and Sabrina. My family includes my father, 2 sisters, nieces, and nephews. In 1957, my mother, father, and sister and I immigrated from Italy. In 1962, I was very proud to become a Canadian citizen. I am a real estate broker. I've run my own real estate company since 1976. My other business interests include being the president of a business condominium corporation and a director of the Scarborough Azzurri Blues Soccer Club, working for children of all ages, and also working on a Special Olympic soccer program. The charities that I give my time to are the Hospital for the Sick Children, the Canadian Cancer Society, and the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Let me tell you why I'm running for City Councillor. Since moving to Ward 11 13 years ago, the interests of us here in Ward 11 have not been a priority to the City of Scarborough. I've had a front seat view of this community, and I'm deeply concerned for all our futures. The main reasons I feel this way: crime, taxes, and our sense of loss for our community. As I said earlier, we have 3 children. When I grew up, being out until midnight was nothing. Today, that's not the case. Crime. Our streets and parks should be safe for all of us to use. None of us, especially our seniors, children, and women, should have to worry that their safety is at risk. Taxes. No one wants to pay more taxes, but none of us want to lose the few services that we have left. Where does this leave us? It's time we change the way we do business in Ward 11. We must find new, innovative ways to produce results, new tax bases must be created to offset increases. Our community, it's to be a place called home, a blend of generations, a place where disabled not differentiated by their lack of access to places we take for granted, a place women, like our wives, sisters, mothers, don't walk in fear of their safety. Dear neighbor, it's painfully obvious to all of us that the incumbent has not served as well for the past 6 years. How many of us get 6 years to get the job right? I am asking for your support in electing me as your city councillor. Ward 11 needs a strong voice to ensure that your concerns are properly addressed. In return for your support, I pledge to serve you. All residents shall receive my commitment, my trust, and my integrity. I will have an open door policy to ensure that I am accessible to all. It's time to elect a fellow resident, the only candidate who lives in Ward 11. Even the past 2 attempts at city councillor have not deterred me from seeking the 3rd time. After all, the 3rd time is charm. Let's send a clear message. What's been done for us in the past is not enough. If Sherene Shaw hasn't gotten it right in 6 years, that's 2 terms, another 3 is not going to make a difference for us. Allow me to represent you, your interests. After all, they are mine too. I live here. On November 14th, elect Don Lombardi as your new city councillor. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sherene Shaw. I'm your City Councillor in Ward 11, and I'm here this evening to tell you why I'm seeking re-election to the position of City Councillor for Ward 11. I'd first like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you and to share some of my thoughts and my comments. Firstly, why am I seeking re-election to the position of City Councillor for Ward 11? Because I firmly believe that I can make a difference, a positive difference, to the decisions that are being made at Scarborough Council, to the policies that are being approved for our city, for our ward, and for our citizens within the city of Scarborough and Ward 11. I feel over the last 6 years as the city councillor, I've had a proven track record as to the activities that directly affect our families within the ward. Let me just outline those very briefly for you. First of all, over the last 6 years as the city councillor, some of the things that I've worked on directly is getting the Kidstown facility built at Kennedy, in Lamoureux Park, at Birchmount and McNichol. I don't know if many of you have actually gone out and visited it, but I do know that many of our children in the community have spent much hours enjoying the water facility. It's one of the best in the city. It's the first of its kind in Scarborough, and it's in Lamoureux Park in Ward 11. It didn't come easily. In fact, it took many months of hard work, negotiation, and discussion with city departments, with corporate citizens, with community residents to ensure that the Kidstown facility is built in the Ward 11 community, and I'm very proud of that for our citizens. The other project that I'm very proud of is the building of the Lamoureux Community Centre, which is at the corner of Kennedy and McNichol. That houses many of our community residents from all spectrums of life, whether it be our seniors with the line dancing program and our very active senior program at the Lamoureux Community Centre, or whether it be our teenage program, our youth programs, our drop-in programs for our young people in our community, or our preschool programs. They've all been very well attended and very well used, and I'm very proud of knowing that the Lamoureux Community Centre is now built in Ward 11 thanks to the efforts of the community and the residents, and also of my efforts at Scarborough Council. I'm proud of that particular facility. Some of the other activities that I've been involved with at Scarborough Council for the Ward 11 community has been trying to get the McNichol Road extension approved and built. And many of you will know and have seen the construction happening at the McNichol Road extension between Kennedy and Midland Avenue. That hopefully should be completed in the next few months and ready for spring of 1995. That's taken a lot of years, again, of hard work and negotiation at Scarborough Council to get that approved. With regard to taxes, over the last 6 years, I've had a proven track record and established a strong stance when it comes to responsible taxation. Scarborough Council, over the last 3 out of 4 years, have had no tax increase in the city of Scarborough for 3 out of 4 years. And I think that doesn't come very easily. It takes a lot of hard work and political will. And I was at the forefront of that because I feel it's important that we have responsible taxation for our residents within the city of Scarborough. The other aspect of taxes is, of course, market value assessment. I've been at the forefront of the fight to ensure that Scarborough Council, the city of Scarborough, and of course Ward 11 residents benefit from market value assessment. I've been at the forefront of the fight demanding market value assessment from the provincial government to try to get them to approve an equal, more fair and more equitable property tax structure for all of our citizens within the city of Scarborough and of course for Ward 11. In fact, Ward 11 stands to benefit. 85% of our residents would benefit from market value assessment if the province is to approve it, and I think it's important that all of us work hard and lobby hard the provincial government to ensure that. On the aspect of taxes, again, we've got the issue of tax appeals. Scarborough Council over the last 2 years have encouraged very strongly our residents to appeal their assessment to the provincial government. And I'm pleased to say that with the forums that has been held, the open houses, the seminars that has been held, we've had over 20,000 property owners within the city receiving tax deductions. There are many, many more who could and many, many more who should. And I believe through the appeal process, we will ensure that. So it's up to all of us to keep fighting away to ensure that we do have property tax reassessment approved by the provincial government so that we can have a more fair and equitable tax structure for the city of Scarborough and for the residents of Ward 11. Some of the other items I want to mention as to what I've been doing as your councillor over the last 6 years. Many of you have commented to me as I've been knocking on doors how much you appreciate the regular newsletters that I send out to the community. I think it's important. I believe strongly that open communication with government and with local residents is a must. For that, I've been sending regular newsletters to the residents of the city of Scarborough, to the residents of Ward 11, to ensure that you know what's going on at City Hall, to ensure you know what programs and policies are being developed and being shaped so that you can participate, you and your family can get involved publicly, participate in dialogue in the decision making, because I think it's important to include our residents, our families, our user groups in the decisions that are being made at Scarborough Council. And that's why I have felt very strongly about ensuring that you receive a regular newsletter regularly, maybe every 5 months or so. Over the last 6 years, I know you've been receiving that to keep you informed of what's happening at Scarborough Council. Also, I hold regular meetings with the community to ensure that, again, you're dialoguing and being informed and taking part in the decisions that are being made that I'm making on your behalf at Scarborough Council. What will I continue to do over the next 3 years once elected? I hope that with your support, I will be fortunate again to be re-elected to the post of City Council for the Ward 11 community. And what I will continue to do is to provide strong leadership as I've done over the last 6 years on your behalf. I will continue to fight for responsible taxation for the city and for the residents within the city of Scarborough and for you and your family. I will continue to support zero tax increase, property tax freezes within the city's portion of your tax bill. I will continue to lobby hard for market value assessment because I think it's an issue of fairness for our city and for our residents. So I will continue to lobby very hard to ensure that we are receiving our fair share of our tax dollar, that we are receiving fair and equitable property tax structure in the future for the city. I will also continue to fight for improved safety within our communities and try to reduce crime within our communities because I think safety is a right for all of us as families, as citizens, and as taxpayers in this city. We must expect safety. It's our right, and I think it's government's responsibility to ensure that right any which way we can. So I will certainly be looking to improve safety within our community and also look at reducing crime within our community. We must get together as communities, dealing with local agencies, the police department, local groups, and residents, so that we can ensure a safe and secure community and neighborhood for all of us. The next point I wanted to address is the issue of our youth. Our young people are vital to the economy, vital to our community, and vital to our neighborhoods. And we must ensure that their needs are being heard, that their needs are being addressed, and their needs are being met. And I would like to see more discussion and more dialogue and listening to the concerns of our young people in our community and in our city, so that we can better serve their needs, so that they can become a productive part of our society, as they are now, and more so in the future as time goes on. The other point I just wanted to address with regard to job creation. I think job creation is a must to ensure that our families are getting back on track in the city of Scarborough. We need to look at job creation strategies and employment initiatives so that we can become a viable, productive society for the future. Let me just wrap up in saying thank you very much for your support over the last 6 years. Many of you, as I've met you at the doors over the last few months, as I've been knocking on doors, have been very supportive, and I know you've enjoyed the newsletters. I know you've been pleased with some of the decisions made with regard to Ward 11, whether it be Kidstown, whether it be the Lamanna Community Centre, or whether it be no tax increase in the city. So let me thank you for that, and I hope that I can count on your support again on November 14th on Election Day, because I do firmly believe that I can make a positive difference and continue to make a positive difference at Scarborough Council. Thank you for your support.
Make an informed decision this November the 14th. Watch Trillium Community 10's Mayoralty Debate, Monday, October the 31st at 9 p.m. Tuesday, November the 1st at 7 p.m. Saturday, November the 5th at 2 p.m. and on Thursday, November the 10th at 10 p.m. Trillium Community 10, your election connection.
Hello, my name is Pauline Browse, and I'm very honored to be here with my friend Rosa Chan, an outstanding Canadian citizen, a resident of Scarborough for more than 10 years. Rosa Chan has decided to put her name forward as the Scarborough Councillor for Ward 12. Rosa, congratulations.
Thank you for the introduction.
Well, I'm delighted that you're going to run for council. Tell me some of the reasons that you want to be on Scarborough Council for Ward 12.
I think if I become a councillor, I can do a better job in bringing different communities together to build a healthy and harmonious community and to campaign for a better business community. And with my vast experience in community, and I think it's an asset to Scarborough.
Well, you have had a vast experience in Scarborough and all of metropolitan Toronto. Tell us some of the things that you've been involved with. I know that you've been Citizen of the Year by the YMCA. Tell me about some of the experiences you've had in the community.
I have been a volunteer for over 20 years, and I enjoy every bit of it. And I know the importance of participation in community. And I'm particularly very involved with the YMCA because it's an organization helping people to build a healthy individual, healthy family, and healthy community. And that's all I believe all the time.
Well, Scarborough is a great place to live. You've been here for more than 10 years yourself with your own family. And you talk about safety for our community. Now, you've had some experience with the Chief of Police Committee on that.
Yes.
What are some of your experiences on that?
Yeah, it's true. I'm a member of the Consultative Committee of the Chief Police, and we come across a lot of issues about safety. And I think safety is right now is a great concern of the community. And I would like to see the resident and everyone, every department of the government department work together to solve these issues about safety in community.
Well, that is a concern in Scarborough, whether it's safety on the streets or safety in the schools or safety in our homes. Safety in the schools, I understand you've been on the Scarborough Board of Education Race Relations.
Correct.
What are some of the things that you've done there?
Well, on the Scarborough School Board, I was talking to the teachers and the superintendent. We are trying to identify some of the violence in school. And I think I truly support the school board is at zero tolerance in violence.
Well, you could be congratulated for your outstanding commitment for safety that you have demonstrated your concern for that already. You're a member of the board of Friends of Scarborough, Chamber of Commerce. So on the business side of things and jobs, you know, how do you see that investment? How do you see that taking place here in Scarborough as a councillor?
Yeah, I think Scarborough needs stimulation in new business and more cooperation and partnership with the business business sector and government to create jobs and also to create jobs for students.
Well, certainly opportunities for young people in Scarborough are going to be very, very important. You've had some experience on getting investment into Scarborough too. You've been on some trade missions.
Yes, you're right. I went to Hong Kong and China as a member of the Metro Toronto Week, and we were trying to explore a new idea, a new business opportunity to Canada, and particularly in Scarborough, because I realized that Scarborough lost a lot of business lately to other municipalities. So we have to attract new business to fill the gap, really.
Yes. Well, absolutely, and that kind of investment into Scarborough and the entrepreneurship that for young people, I think is what really we need to look at in terms of the opportunities in Scarborough. Now, you've also had some experience on the cultural side of things too. What is that experience that you've had?
Yeah, actually I think culture is a very interesting thing and it can bring people together. And I was a member of the Art Foundation of Greater Toronto, and I was the vice president of Chinese Cultural Center. And I always believe that we can exchange culture and make these communities more rich with cultures.
Well, bringing people together. You've had a lifetime of bringing people together and participating. You know, tell me how you think you can bring that kind of experience to the council in the kinds of things that you've been able to do.
I think you have to understand the community, and you're willing to work with all communities and try to facilitate opportunity for them to work together. And I've been working with many organizations like the United Way, and I was the first co-chair for entertainment. And I bring in different cultural groups to perform, and we all work together to raise money for United Way.
Well, you have had a wealth of experience. I mean, your concern and your demonstration for safety in the streets with the Mayor's Committee, your work on the education side, bringing jobs to Scarborough. I mean, I think you're the perfect councillor for Scarborough.
Thank you. But I'm really looking forward for the opportunity to serve the people in Scarborough. And being a resident of Scarborough myself, and I'm more than willing to help and to serve them.
Well, I know that every job that you take on, it's with great vigor and enthusiasm to get the job done. And I know that the kind of work that you have done for the last 25 years in metropolitan Toronto and in Scarborough, if you bring that kind of enthusiasm to the council, you'll be an outstanding councillor, and the residents of Ward 12 will be very, very fortunate to have you as their councillor.
Well, I know that we should not make promises, but I'm willing to make these promises. Is that I know I'm a workaholic and I like to work hard, and I have a habit to work hard, so I would not disappoint you with this.
Well, I know you have many people that can back up that statement of how you have served the community and the now with the opportunity to serve at this level as an elected representative for Scarborough, where we are a magnificent city of 500,000 people, that you are to be congratulated that you're put your name forward. What are some of the main things that you would like to accomplish and get things done as a councillor for Ward 12?
Well, I would like to ensure community safety, which is the greatest concern right now. And I would like to increase job opportunities. And I would like to bring business to Scarborough. And I definitely would like to bring all the different communities working together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you've got a lot of people helping you. Mm-hmm. You've got a lot of friends, a lot of family, and a lot of people that you have touched in your own work that are helping you, and so it's a great army of people that you've got working. Now you've been doing some work on the radio too.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Right now I have a talk show in the CCBC radio. It's a Chinese radio program. And the program is really talk about issues. And I want to use the program to educate the community to be aware of the issues. And also we have phone in. People can phone in and give us the input and discuss about issues. And I find this is a very educational program.
So is that the kind of thing that you might be able to do after you become elected, as far as keeping in touch with the residents and citizens in Ward 12?
Yeah, if I can get more airtime, I would do this more often. I find it's very productive. And people are really aware of the issues, and they can even discuss with us about the issue. It's really, productive.
Well, this whole information highway of getting messages to the people and getting input is very important. I know that you've done quite a bit of work with some of your family members on computers in terms of getting messages out.
You're right. Well, we are trying to use a computer and automation to increase the efficiency of communication. Particularly, I would like to see the school and the parents would use this kind of system to communicate better.
Well, I know that the taxpayers in Ward 12 will be well served with your financial background, your interest in safety, jobs, the residents working together. What would be your message to the residents of Ward 12?
I would tell the resident Ward 12, I need your support and I appreciate you come out and vote for me. And for the benefit of some Chinese members in the community, 記得你出嚟咧投我一票，咁我哋都有個華人代表喺市政廳做你嘅橋梁。多謝。
Hello, my name is Doug Mahood. I am currently the City Councillor for the area called Ward 12 in the City of Scarborough. I'm running again. I've been your councillor for 9 years and I'm seeking re-election for another term. I live in Ward 12 at 48 Glen DeBaeremaeker Drive with my wife and my daughter. I've lived in Scarborough since 1953. I've had some experience in the community before I got involved in politics. I was a founding member of the Central Aging Court Community Association and a past president of that association. As I said, I've been your councillor for the last 9 years. I've worked from the beginning as a full-time councillor. I have no other part-time jobs or interests. And as a matter of fact, this time I'm the only candidate that actually lives in Ward 12. I've had a lot of experience now on council after 9 years. I've been a member of the Administrative Committee, the Race Relations Committee, the Planning Committee, the Budget Committee, Rec and Parks Committee, Committee of Adjustments, the Public Library Board, and the Metro Housing Committee. It's been an interesting 9 years. I've enjoyed it, and I want to continue to be your voice on Scarborough Council. I'd like to talk for a few moments about my track record, what I've done for you as your representative on council. And I think the thing that I'm most proud of is the issue of taxes. I believe that the citizens of all of Scarborough, one of the greatest concerns to you has been your taxes. That's what you've said to me over the years. Well, in 1991, I was elected budget chief, and we took a new direction on Scarborough Budget Committee that year, and I set out a challenge to my fellow members of council on the committee, and we were going to come in for the first time ever for a 0 tax % increase. And I was very fortunate that I had 3 other members of council who sat on that committee that agreed with me, and we formed the majority on that committee. We gained the momentum, and we were able to trim the budgets down to 0. And that was in a year, I must add, where some of the salary awards through the arbitration process were as high as 6%. So I was very pleased that we were able to do that. We set a new trend, not only for Scarborough, but for the Metropolitan Council and for the school boards. In 1992, we attempted once again to get a 0 budget. The vote lost 8-7. We didn't make it, but we really did try. In the next 2 years, the last 2 actually, once again we have achieved 0 budgets. Well, we set the precedent, we set the goal, and we've been able to achieve it. So if you look back over the last 4 years, the total tax increase for the city of Scarborough has only been 2.4%, versus Metro Council has come in at 21.5%, and the school boards at 19.4%. The other great achievement I think that we've been able to do was when we started approximately a year ago to assist property owners in appealing their taxes. Approximately 37,000 appeals were launched as a result of what we did at council. Now, not all the appeals have been successful, of course, but I know that over 50% of them have been. So I'm very pleased with that, and I pledge that as long as I'm on Scarborough Council, I will not vote for a tax increase. I've said it in the past. I've proved to you that what I've said is true, and I will continue to vote for nothing but 0. The other big issue that I hear as I go door to door is the area of crime. There's no doubt there's an increase in violent crime in Scarborough. We see it on the news. A few years ago, the Metropolitan Toronto Police Force wanted to build a new police station in Scarborough at Milner and Markham Road. The existing facilities were outdated, there was no doubt about it. But in order to get their new police station, what they wanted to do was close up all the small stations in Scarborough. Particularly, of course, affecting Ward 12 would have been the police station at Finch and Brimley. There was another one down on Kingston Road. Well, as your representative on Scarborough Council, Metro Police and Metro Council consulted Scarborough Council on this closure of the potential closure of the police station. I was absolutely adamant, and with the help of some citizens, we were able to convince them to leave our police station open. The one down on Kingston Road, on the other hand, nobody lobbied to keep it open. And sure enough, it was closed, and sure enough, the crime in that area skyrocketed, and then they had to go and lobby Metro to reopen that police station, which has since been done. Ward 12 in the city of Scarborough, in fact, the Agincourt area in the city of Scarborough, has the lowest crime rate. We have the lowest unemployment rate. We have the highest occupancy rate in the commercial and industrial sector. We are doing much better than the rest of Scarborough. I'm very pleased with the new library facility, the Agincourt District Library, that was recently constructed and opened behind the Agincourt Mall. It's the largest library in Scarborough. It has the largest number of books, etc., and it now enjoys the largest circulation in Scarborough. It's a real gem. Now, the next thing is the Agincourt Community Center. Now, this has been a pet project of mine for the last 6 years. I got budget approval for it. A lot of the money for the community center was actually raised by development charges. It's a one-of-a-kind. It's a first in Scarborough. It's called an indoor leisure pool. It's going to be opened in January. It's a little bit behind schedule. Originally, it was going to be opened this past summer. The community hall and the hockey rinks, of course, are up and operational. We're just waiting for the finishing touches on the pool. I think you'll be extremely pleased that we were able to build a facility like this without increasing property taxes. The future. What is my vision of the future of Scarborough? Scarborough's changing. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of decisions that are made at other levels of government affect your everyday life in Scarborough. There are many people that run for municipal politics who claim that they can do this and they can do that, and in fact they have very little say, no voting say whatsoever in those types of decisions. But you know, what is important as a city councillor representing you is to maintain a high profile. And when something goes wrong at another level of government, speak out. Speak out publicly, whether it be at council, and I have done that. My pledge to you for the next 3 years is to continue to assist in property tax appeals, which is monitored and done at the provincial government level. To maintain fiscal responsibility, as I've said, I will not, and I repeat, I will not vote for any increase in taxes. I will continue to fight to maintain our stable residential communities. When people ask for rezonings, I will consult you, and if you say no, I'll say no. And if you say yes, I say yes. Development is good for Scarborough, but it must be compatible. And when people come in and ask, in some cases, for to redevelop, for example, industrial lands to apartment buildings at 300 units to the acre of land, I say no. I've been criticized by some of my colleagues for saying no, that I do not believe that those type of densities are appropriate for the city of Scarborough. I do vote for most rezonings, but only after community consultation, and I am sure that it does fit in with my and your vision of Scarborough. I promise to maintain and enhance our recreation and cultural facilities. I have been very successful in Ward 12 in doing that. I will continue to help in other areas of Scarborough with their needs. I think it's important that your city councillor project a positive image of Scarborough. I believe I've done that. To encourage economic growth, I've done that. As I said earlier, we have the highest occupancy rate in both our industrial and commercial areas in Ward 12. I continue to lobby for increased police protection. And last but not least, the Rouge River Valley system. It must be protected, and I will continue at every chance to vote in support of protecting it. I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today, and on November the 14th, I hope you will continue to support me and re-elect me as Councillor of Ward 12. The last thing, a lot of people have asked me who I support for mayor. Frank Fulbert.
Good day. We're here with Peter Naan, who is one of the candidates running for City Councillor in Ward 12. Welcome, Mr. Naan.
Thank you.
Mr. Naan, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your family?
Yes, I am 35 years old, and I've been happily married to my wife Betty for 4 years, and we have 2 children. Amory is 3 years old, and Aldrich is 1 month old.
Oh, that sounds nice. I understand that you practice law here in Scarborough?
Yes, that is correct. I have been practicing law for the past 6 years, and I am currently a partner of the law firm of Naan, which has been formed since 1992 with my partner Lorenzo Bradinetti, who happens to be the councillor for Ward 4 Scarborough, and he's also seeking a 3rd-term re-election in this election.
All right. Mr. Naan, when elected, what do you propose to do in the municipal office as a councillor?
As shown from my campaign literature, I'm running on 2 major platforms. The first one is to lower the property taxes, and the second one is to lower the crime rate.
Now, Mr. Naan, how do you propose to lower the crime rate?
I would propose lower the crime rate with the introduction of a proactive measures to fight crime, such as bringing in the concept of neighborhood patrol. The neighborhood watch program doesn't seem to work too well now, and we should be taking the streets from the criminals with the introduction of the neighborhood patrol programs, which needs the support of all residents. sort of an open door policy towards the police and a closed door policy against the criminals.
Right. Do you have any previous experience to base these findings on?
Yes, I have served 3 years as an auxiliary police constable with the Metropolitan Toronto Police Force during my undergrad time at the St. Michael's College, University of Toronto. What I have seen during those 3 years is that the police officers on the street needs the support of the citizens. Not just the actual support, but the feelings of support from the citizens. We must show the officers on the beat in the area that they are welcomed by the community and that they have the full cooperation of all citizens in their fight against crime.
Right. Mr. Nyan, you mentioned also the lowering of property taxes. Could you expand on that?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I do believe that the property taxes may be lowered and can be lowered if we look at the city budget and expenditures in a more careful manner. The city has grown in size and is similar to any major corporations. There are always possibility of lowering or eliminating certain expenditures and without cutting the services to the residents.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Mr. Nyan. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yes, a final word to the residents. I do care about the affairs in the ward. I am fully committed to bring about the 2 promises I have put in the campaign literature. All I ask is your vote on November 14th so that I may have a chance to serve you on the City Council to bring about the changes for a brighter future in Scarborough.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Bruce Sapsford. I want to be elected City Councillor for Ward 13 in Scarborough, and I want your vote. I have 30 years of marketing and sales experience in various capacities while working for Kodak Canada. And for the past 7 years, I have been actively selling residential real estate in Scarborough and in the surrounding areas. My wife Adrienne and I both grew up in Toronto, and we chose to live in Scarborough when we were married in 1962. We've raised our family here and are firmly dedicated to Scarborough. I want to help make Scarborough simply the best place to live, to work, and to invest. My interest in the community really began back in the 60s when I joined the Scarborough JCs, eventually becoming the local president and later honored with a lifetime membership. When I moved to Ward 13 22 years ago, I immediately got involved in the C.D. Farquharson Community Association. I served actively in various capacities for 7 years, primarily as the Community Development Chairman during that community's early growth, and I served as its president for an additional 2 years, 2 terms that is. During those active years, as a community representative, along with our association's delegations, I was always regarded by Scarborough Council as a responsible and credible voice in the community. I've also served the City of Scarborough for more than 18 years in various positions to which Scarborough Council has appointed me. But I want more than that. I want to carry my reputation of responsible and credible to Council once again, this time as Councillor for Ward 13. Why? Because I am fed up with what has been happening to Scarborough. I am fed up hearing the word Scarberia. I am fed up hearing about the crime in Scarborough. I'm also fed up with councillors who take pride in driving away good business and good development. I'm fed up with councillors who are more interested in confrontation when cooperation would make more sense. I am fed up listening to local councillors who fail to understand that if Scarborough does not grow, it will die. That is a basic fact of life. The opposite of growth is death. If you fail to grow, you die. I love Scarborough. It's a great city, and it deserves a far better future than some would allow it. I've watched Scarborough develop into a fine city, and I'm not going to sit back and watch it deteriorate any longer. I'm fed up watching our roads and sidewalks deteriorate. I'm fed up with parks where the city could not afford to plant flowers this year. I'm fed up with all the cutbacks that council has had to impose in order to keep our taxes down. What will they cut out next? I'm fed up with doing with less, and in order to get more, we must grow. During the 70s and 80s, Scarborough rode the crest of economic growth, capitalizing on the influx of new Canadians who brought money, were willing to invest it, and were willing to work hard. We grew by doing nothing. We couldn't do wrong, and the money kept rolling in. However, during the past 5 or 6 years, while neighboring cities like Markham, North York, Mississauga have continued to grow and to prosper, we've seen very little change here in Scarborough. Look around your own neighborhood. Doesn't matter whether it's your neighborhood or mine. Look at the major arterial roads where growth should be taking place. Take Shepherd Avenue, for example, one of the major streets in Scarborough. It has not changed in years. Take Kennedy Road, McCowan Road, Eglinton Avenue, Markham Road or Lawrence. They're all the same. There has been no growth. If there is no growth, you die. Where there is growth, there is life. Now, Scarborough has been able to keep local taxes down over the past few years only by cutting out services and reducing our quality of life. However, what else is there to cut out? Without taking active, positive steps, you can bank on tax increases. The only alternative is growth. And to grow, we must get rid of those councillors who are opposed to growth. We must get rid of those councillors who live in the dark ages and who fight against business and fight against sensible development. The solution is Scarborough must grow. Scarborough must grow by encouraging
jobs and businesses away from Metro Toronto. Realistically speaking, what can you do about bringing those taxes down and attracting those jobs and businesses back into Metro?
Personally, by myself, little. And any politician that gets up and says they're going to do it is not being entirely honest. What you've got to do is you've got to get your fellow members on council to agree to a plan of action. And that plan of action has got to start, first of all, with market value assessment, properly done. Metro goofed that. They should have went to the province. I was the deputy minister in the province when they started talking about that. And they never did go up to the province to say, well, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And that's one thing. And we've got to talk with the area municipalities. So I would hope with some of that, after all, that was my job. As the Chief Administrative Officer of Metro, I was always seeking to get coalitions of politicians so that we could achieve the objectives which were outlined for us.
Well, I'd like to just touch on one more little thing about today's Metro Council. They recently voted to not extend the York subway line, nor the one in Scarborough. How would you have voted in that?
Oh, I've still got enough knowledge to know that York should go ahead. There's no question in my mind of that. As far as the other two, they've got to be done. They've got to be done. The question of it is timing, and being an economist and being also somewhat of a fiscal conservative, I would be very cautious about that timing. But certainly, from the idea that they shouldn't be built and that's just not valid. And they should talk about doing the one to York University immediately. That's a mess up in that place. And I think you've got to look to the one to go along Shepherd, and certainly the one into Melbourne. These are vital things. It's vital for land use planning to get to wherever you get a subway. You get more people and you get a better result from the municipal infrastructure that's already there that we've paid for. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to see our children just go on paying ad infinitum.
Mm-hmm. Everyone who's running for election today, it talks about crime in Scarborough. Well, what solutions, realistic solutions, do you have for resolving that problem?
Well, crime is the first thing that when we go door to door as we are, that's the first thing people talk about. Between 25 and 30% of the population in our area are seniors, and they're very concerned about it. Crime, there's three things you've got to do. First of all, you've got to start in the criminal justice system, and you've got to really beef that up. You've got to have gun control. You've got to have enforcement. And you've got to have, at the end of the day, a police force that you respect. And I keep telling people that as far as I'm concerned, there's no question that we cannot savage the police budget any more than it has been savaged to this point in time. And that doesn't mean putting taxes up. It does mean cutting out and making the whole government more efficient so that we can give some of that money to the resources that are absolutely necessary.
Do you feel that the public should have had some input into the selection of the new police chief?
Oh, that's a bit of a difficult position. I think, first of all, the command structure within the police and the board. First of all, they will make the decision. That's where it belongs. I think all of the groups that are going along and appear before the police commission, I think they should have input. And they should say the type of person that they would see, that they would want as a police chief. But listen, don't take it away. Don't take the decision away from where it belongs. And that's with the Police Services Board and in the command structure.
I'd just like to switch gears a little bit and ask you about planning decisions. As a Metro Councillor, are you actually able to overturn planning decisions? There is an issue at Port Union in Lawrence. Whatever comes of it, would you be able to reverse that decision?
No, as a councillor, you can't do that. That particular development is now in the hands of the OMB, and there is a thing going through the legislature right now that is even going to give the OMB more power. People don't realize the real power in planning comes from the province, where they set down a group of policies, and you've got to follow those policies when you're in government. But generally, it's a very interesting time. I'm looking forward to getting into council and changing a few things. It is really a time for change down there.
Mr. Kruger, thank you very much. I'm afraid we're out of time. This is my guest has been Mr. John Kruger. He's running for Metro Council on Scarborough Highland Creek. Please vote on November 14th. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm Ken Morrish. I'm your representative at Metro Council for the last 15 years. And I would like today to go over a few things of the Metro Council that I feel that it's affecting our ward. The first, of course, is the law and order, which we're having problems, and they're not as bad as what they were, but we're still having problems in our ward, and it has been rectified to a certain degree by the reopening of 4040 Lawrence Avenue, which I managed to get reopened with the help of the citizens of the area a couple of years ago. And it has, with the presence of the police there, it has certainly reduced the crime in that area. But we have to continue on and get a larger percentage of police in our area. We are the lowest percentage of any, in comparison to population, in any area in Metro. I have to say that 40-40 has helped a great deal, but we certainly have to keep it open. It's been tried a number of times with the tight budget in the police by the Police Services Board and others to close 40-40, and I certainly objected to that violently, and will continue to do so until there's some replacement. Now, I am looking at, or have been, and discussing it with the police and with our board members for some time, the opening of a third station in East Scarborough. Now, it's certainly needed because we just have two, and we have a population of between 550 and 600,000 now. And the reason why we've lagged behind so much is because the great increase in population of the city of Scarborough, and there's been very little, if none, increase in the police. So this new station, to me, is a must in the east part of Scarborough. And I've been working on it for a couple of years, but with the problems of budgets in the police department, it has been deferred a bit, and I'm certainly going to pursue that as soon as the new council takes place. The other is that I'm concerned on is the TTC in Scarborough. We have to have additional routes and closer times that you're not waiting as long for a bus, or well, we don't have streetcars there, so it's basically a bus out in Scarborough. And I'm looking at new routes and extending of the times in the evening. Also, the approval of the LRT, which it doesn't help us too much in Scarborough Highland Creek, but it certainly is an improvement to the or will be an improvement to the overall TTC. Now, we did lose that. I voted for it. I was listed in the paper as not voting for it, but that was an error, and it has been corrected by the paper if anybody noticed it. But I certainly was in favor of it, and we lost 14-7, or 14-17. So I think that as soon as, or certainly will, as soon as the new council takes place, move to have that reopened, and hopefully we can get the construction of the LRT on the way. The other problem I'm having right now is with our ambulance. It has been, our ambulance has been very good. Our times have been around 5 minutes, and that is acceptable. But now, and we had an instance a couple of days ago where it was 14 minutes. Now that is absolutely unacceptable to me, because it could mean somebody's life, and I'm certainly going to pursue that. I was talking about that in the last council meeting that we had, and relayed to council the problems we were having out there. So that has to certainly be rectified. Now, I have always been for zero tax increase, and I'm certainly going to pursue that this year again, and I think this can be achieved by maybe even a reduction, by the reduction of some of our departments. I think we're over-governed in some areas, and I have also discussed this in council, so I will be bringing it up at budget time. We need, too, to assist the taxes, or the taxpayer in Scarborough, a tax reform. Or the return of MVA, or some other tax review, because when MVA came out about 2 years ago, I had in my ward 90% of our residents would have received reductions. But as you maybe know, this was approved by Metro Council, but wasn't approved by our present government. So I am looking at as soon as the new provincial government comes in, of returning either with an improved MVA or a whole new tax, whatever council decides. But there certainly has to be something when you have 90%, and they were reductions from $50 to $100 to $1,000 that people would have received in my ward. So we have to pursue that. The zoning, the one department that I certainly wish to cut back is Metro's planning department, and it has been proposed by my opposition that the two should amalgamate. The Scarborough planning department that does your zonings and so on, and the Metro planning department. Well, to me that doesn't work at all, because you have your communities, or it wouldn't work at all, I should say. You have your communities, and your local representative knows and has the feel of those communities, and if they're single family or whatever, and Metro, you have votes in there from Etobicoke, North York, and whatever, and they certainly know their own area, but they don't know what's going on in Scarborough. I had a vote there recently on the Port Union project, which I lost because the other members didn't even know what they were voting on. They just went along with our planning department that said we need higher density. And what do you need? You don't need higher density when it's all single family. And this is the problem with having other municipalities in metropolitan Toronto voting on your local municipality. Because I asked one council member there why she voted against me, and her answer was, and I said, do you know the area? And her answer was that, yes, she rode a bicycle out there 15 years ago. So that's the kind of a vote you would get by allowing the two departments to be amalgamated. I certainly agree you don't need both, and to me the Metro one is the one that I don't say the whole department, but when we have 75 people in it now, I think about 10 would be quite adequate. And a couple other things that we're doing in we've just about completed our East Point Park ball diamonds, and I think they'll be a great asset to the community for the numbers of diamonds that we lack in Scarborough now. That this is certainly going to fill a great void. Another thing I'm working on is the walkway from Scarborough Golf through through Morningside Park and right down through Colonel Danforth, and we're down now as far as Lawrence Avenue, and I wish to continue it on to the lake, that it can then be extended to the east into Port Union, or to the west into East Point Park. So I think those are some of the things that I'm certainly pursuing, or going to pursue, have been, and I'm going to continue to pursue. And my whole reason for being in government at all, I've been in there now for 28 years, and my whole reason for being there is to have the best communities that we can in Metro, and certainly to assist the residents of the area. We receive 25 to 30 phone calls a day for assistance and questioning and so on and so forth, and I certainly wish to continue that, and that's my only reason, and I get the satisfaction I get out of helping people. And I would hope that you'll support me to continue on that route. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Hello, everyone. With me is Mr. Worrick Russell, who is a candidate for Metro Council, and he's running in the ward of Scarborough City Centre. Mr. Russell, why are you running for Metro Council?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jim, for the question. I have worked for Metro Council for Metro for many years, and having seen how things are done, I have made the real tough decision to run for Metro Council. I think it's time for changes that will develop the leadership that Scarborough needs within the Metro region.
Some of the issues that have come up from a number of people are the higher taxes, lack of leadership, lack of jobs. Could you give us some of your views on, for example, how you would get more business and jobs into the metro area?
Jim, the issue of leadership is the very first issue. Most people I speak to on the street, they always say that the councillor for Scarborough City Centre seems to be always sleeping. In fact, Scarborough City Centre is a sleeping area. We need to revitalize this economy by holding business here. We need to create the jobs necessary to get going. The revitalization of the economy for business would mean that we have to revisit and look at the tax base as it is, because Scarborough and Metro are both losing business to the outlying regions because of the lower tax base. Metro needs to provide the tax incentive and to work alongside with the local municipality for Scarborough. They have been working in isolation over the years, each doing their own thing without the true partnership that is necessary to keep business here. Additionally, I will ensure that we use the facilities at Metro to lead on to the creation of more business. And from those, the creation of more business in Scarborough City Centre, we will be able to create more jobs. The reality is that we haven't been using the facilities that are available to us at this time. For example, the various tourist facilities around Scarborough, to move the tourists within Scarborough Centre to ensure that business gets going. So with a tax base and with the new movement of people towards businesses within Scarborough Centre, we should be able to create more jobs.
Is there any way you can ensure the citizens that the streets will be safer?
I have been working very hard over the last years with various agencies to ensure some form of safety come to our streets. As a matter of fact, recently in May, I appeared on Youth Focus with Sergeant Battalion, where we talk about youth and crimes and the thing that we have to do to help to resolve those issues. There has to be some form of partnership established with the communities, with the courts, and with the police. The problem that I see within the community at this particular time is all the different factors working in isolation. I will ensure that our police get the necessary support, the necessary service necessary to ensure that we can reach those in the street. That you have to create the linkages, and that linkage is the linkage I have been working towards creating over the last years.
You mentioned that you worked with youth. Could you give us some other views on how you would help the youth of Metropolitan Toronto?
Yes, one of the first thing would be to increase the funding to the Metro Youth Fund. Create an entrepreneurial development center that is linked with business and with youth, and giving them the tax incentive to put youth to work. Link the agencies, develop a true community partnership that all community partners can work together on the focal issue. Give our young people a hope. and create jobs through the ongoing programs that will be created. For too long, everything has been squeezed in so tight that there's absolutely no chance for these youth to move ahead and to surge forward. So with no services, well, there are some services, but the lack of adequate amount of services for them, the result is that we have more crime.
Another age group is seniors. Can you give us some views on how you see you could help the seniors?
Seniors need to get more services available to them. Presently, when people get older, the amount of money that they have to spend gets less, because you go on, you start receiving a senior's income rather than your regular income. The result is that the ability to pay is less. So I would force Metro to start recognizing the value of our seniors who have built this country, to change the tax base, and therefore make taxes match income. So as seniors, with seniors then with a lower income, then the tax base would decrease. Additionally, and the transportation system here should have special accommodation for seniors by using special bylaws, so that when they use the facilities that we have available, those facilities would make special care be available to them. Provide further assistance to those agencies that are giving help to seniors.
Another subject that comes up every once in a while is the trust of politicians. Can you give us your insights on politicians and why people should trust them?
It is difficult to say to people, don't trust politicians, because at this particular time I am also regarded as a politician. The problem is that most individuals, once they get elected, seem to be cut off from the community. They are not out there in the street talking with people, seeing and hearing them. And as a result, they go away doing their own thing. They develop little nest of their own, supporting themselves and doing their own projects with little or much incentive for the local community people.
Another subject that comes up is the environment. Could we have your views on the environment?
Yes, and I was on the Scarborough Environmental Advisory Committee for a short period between 1985 and 1988, and I've still maintained the strong need for a good environment. To that effect, developing an LRT system here to bring it to Centennial College would ensure that we have cleaner air on a long-term basis, environmentally safe. We'd also ensure and expand on the recycling programs and ensure that those programs take full effect and get things going.
Could you expand on the transit or transportation area of Metro, how you would see improvements could be made there?
The transit system, first of all, as Mel Lastman did say, there will be no other government in the province of Ontario that will want to finance a transit system to the tune of 75%. I would push that we build that the LRT system to Centennial College. There are mechanisms in place to ensure that there's cost decrease. As a matter of fact, it's now gone down from Metro's share from $400 million from $430 million to $400 million. The bottom line is that 13,000 new jobs will be created. Jim, we're kind of running out of time at this time. I just want to say that it is time for politicians to be responsible. It is time for politicians to represent the people and not allow the bureaucracy to grab a hold of the place with consultant fees and all kind of excessive fees. It is time.
Brian Harrison has been elected official for the city of Scarborough for the last 25 years. Everything from the Scarborough School Board to councillor to alderman to now he's on Metro Council representing Metro Ward 15, which is Scarborough City Centre. So here's a gentleman with a lot of local political experience, and he is seeking re-election for Metro Council. It's nice to have you with us, Brian.
Thanks, Gord.
Just exactly where is Metro 15? What does
Metro Ward 15, Scarborough City Centre, runs from Birch Mountain Road to Markham Road, and from the 401 down to just south of Eglinton. It follows the train tracks.
There has been a lot of discussion lately, and in fact the City of Toronto is having a vote on it, I understand, that we should do away with Metro Council altogether. There's just a waste of money and a waste of time. Now, what's your feeling on it? Because you've been sitting down that council for a long time.
Well, the reason it's on the ballot, Gordon, is because the City of Toronto, if you can remember, really fought us on market value, which all the members of Scarborough Council and all the members of Metro Council from the suburbs fully supported. We supported market value. I've been fighting market value for 17 years, that the people in Scarborough have been overtaxed and paying more than their fair share of the tax burden for 17 years. And we did finally win the point at Metro Council. Unfortunately, the province would not give us the proper legislation to implement that, and the City of Toronto, I think, were the ones who went up to the province and convinced the province not to implement it. They were very dissatisfied with the attacks, as they said, from the suburban members, and they're now putting it on the ballot that they want us to secede, somewhat like the province of Quebec.
I think you have already answered most of this next question, but people have been critical, some people have been critical that the Scarborough representatives on Metro Council haven't been fighting hard enough for Scarborough, like the holding of the RLT extension going to be held back and market value assessment.
Oh yeah, Gord, the SRT, as we call it, is the extension of you know, our new line that comes up from Kennedy Road, and it's supposed to go up to Markham and Shepherd. It goes through my Metro Ward right now,
yeah,
and I've been fighting for it. But I have said that with all the information we have at this time, we cannot afford it this year or in fact next year. The media have said it's stalled, it's killed. It's not killed. We referred it to the next council to take a look at whether in fact we can afford it financially sometime in the future. I think 1966 is the year that council can decide whether in fact, if the economy changes around the way it's starting to, whether we can afford to put ourselves in debt for that many more millions of dollars. If the economy doesn't turn around, Gord, you only have one choice, and that is to raise taxes to put that line in. I don't believe that the taxpayers, including the business community, can in fact afford tax increases at this time. It's a twofold thing. Number one, we're over-assessed. We're paying more than our fair share. If we don't get some relief, if we don't get some fairness, then we can't afford to pay again more than our fair share. We can't afford to burden, you know, the next generation and put it in debt the way the province wants us to. It's as simple as that.
As long as I've known you, Brian, you've always been the guy on whatever particular political level you were elected to. You were always the guy that was saying, hey, we can't raise taxes. We've got to keep those taxes down. The people have to live, and they can't live with too high taxes. What's going to happen in the future? And I'm thinking right now of the federal government is going to cut back, apparently. They have to cut back because of the deficit. And they're going to cut down on the UI, apparently, unemployment insurance. Isn't all those things going to really affect, say, welfare costs and everything else? Because that'll filter down. You won't get it.
Well, it always has, Gordon, and as soon as the finance minister, Mr. Martin, made that announcement, I think he was getting us prepared, and what I was looking at is how much is it going to put the pressure on us as local taxpayers, and if we have to now provide additional services, if we have to provide additional welfare costs because of those cutbacks, the only place we're going to generate the money from is taxes on property. And if we generate any more money, if we increase taxes on property, we're going to be driving more and more businesses out of metropolitan Toronto, not just Scarborough, but metropolitan Toronto. You know, we've seen it happen. We've seen the businesses going to Durham, to York, to Mississauga, and with the businesses go the jobs. And what's happened now is you're ending up with empty industrial buildings. And it's even getting to the point where businesses are taking those buildings down. They're taking them off the land so they don't have to pay taxes on that. Once you lose that tax revenue, and if you still want to provide the services, where does the money come from? It comes out of your money, your pocket and my pocket.
One thing that I think a lot of people are concerned about, in fact everybody is concerned about, is this increase in crime. The number of people of shootings and drive-by shootings and things we never even dreamed of as going to happen in Scarborough or metropolitan Toronto even 10 years ago. Where do we stand on that?
Well, Gordon, the first thing is, I guess I'm very concerned about it because my son is a police officer in metropolitan Toronto. And when there's shootings going on, you always start to worry and wonder. Society is in a state of flux. People are dissatisfied. People are unhappy. There has been less police officers through the budget process, the same as there has been less ambulance operators, less firefighters as far as Scarborough is concerned. Governments, i.e. Metro, and the local governments have had to cut back staff. I don't believe, Gord, as far as essential services, emergency services, that amount of service has declined. What we've had to do is cut off some of the frills, if you want to call it. And some people, they're not getting their calls you know, from the police force as quickly as possible, i.e. where there's neighborhood complaints and stuff like that. Everybody is working harder, but the services have declined. I think, Gordon, what has to happen is, you know, it's not at this level of government where the problem is. The federal level of government have to come in and make sure that the proper penalties are imposed, that these people who are causing the problems in our society are not let loose back into the community the way it has happened. I think, too, that we have to take a look at it, you know, especially with the young offenders. What are the responsibilities of the parents of those young offenders? And I think those parents have to somehow be taken to task for what the young people are doing. A lot of these people have to be trained. A lot of these people have to be told that it's your responsibility. If you bring a child into this world, then in fact you have to look after that child and guide that child properly. I think society has to work together as a whole, Gordon, because if not, we're going to have absolute chaos.
Just as a matter of quick interest, what is the budget of Metro Council? How much money do you play with?
I went to a school class the other day. They were children about the same age as my grandchildren, and I said to them, what do you think the budget is? Well, you know, everybody said, well, from $100 up. The total budget for metropolitan Toronto is $3.8 billion, not million, billion dollars.
That's with a B.
With a B. And Gordon, of that amount, 79% of $3.8 million is used by three major departments. One is community services, the other is the police, and the other is transportation. Now, of the 3.8, that's our gross budget. What we have to do is raise 1.8 out of that, out of taxes.
So that's where experience comes in.
Experiences and an awful lot of number crunching, Gordon, because you have to move priorities back and forth to make sure that your priority services don't decline.
In 30 seconds, last year we only had 27.8% of the eligible voters coming out and casting a ballot. How about this year?
Well, I'm very concerned, Gordon, because the people that I've talked to seem to be very disinterested in this election. I think they just have an indication that politicians as a whole don't do anything for them, but they do. They shape the future, and we do as you direct us to do, and we work on your behalf. I certainly hope that everybody gets out and casts their vote, because it's your decision and your vote, and it's your future that you're voting on.
Thank you very much, Brian.
My pleasure.
You've had the opportunity to meet Brian Harrison, who is seeking re-election to Metro Council, better get this right, Metro Ward 15, which is Scarborough City Centre. Don't forget, November 14th, Election Day. Thank you.
Make an informed decision this November the 14th. Watch Trillium Community 10's mayoralty debate, Monday, October the 31st at 9 p.m. Tuesday, November the 1st at 7 p.m. Saturday, November the 5th at 2 p.m. And on Thursday, November the 10th at 10 p.m. Trillium Community 10, your election connection.
Hello, we're here with Michael Thompson. He's a candidate for Metro Council in Scarborough, Wexford, and he's here today to answer some questions that the voters may have and some questions that I've prepared for him. Michael, welcome.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Okay, I guess we'll start the questions off right away. First of all, I suppose some clarification. A lot of people, including myself, are often unsure about the issues that surround Metro, what Metro is about. Can you shed some light on that for myself and for the voters?
Sure, absolutely. Metro Council largely is responsible for the offering of the shared services that are needed by the 6 municipalities, those services being public transportation, policing, child care, home for the aged. In addition to that, Metro is also responsible for maintenance of roadways and so on in our cities. So that is essentially the overview with respect to Metro's roles and responsibilities.
Okay, that's great. Also now, building on that and given all that, why do you, personally, Michael Thompson, want to run for Metro Council here in Scarborough, Wexford?
Well, I want to run for Metro Council primarily because of the fact that I believe Metro as a government body is largely ineffective. I believe that Metro as a body spends too much money. Metro's current budget is $3.8 billion, and I feel, quite frankly, that that is a gross amount of monies that are being utilized. Largely, I believe that a lot of that funding is improperly spent, inefficiently utilized for services and that are needed for our community. That is one of the reasons why I'm running. So essentially, I think that Metro as a body should either be changed or revised or be eliminated as such. So essentially, Kevin, you can see I'm running for something that I think should not really exist. And perhaps there's a dichotomy there. Fact of the matter is, the only way to change or to affect that process is essentially to be a part of the Metro government. So that's the reason why I'm running for Metro Council.
Okay, that's very interesting, actually. Then, beyond that, I suppose we should go into maybe some of the issues that maybe you're encountering at the door, some of the issues that you feel need to be addressed, particularly as it relates to Scarborough, Wexford. So maybe you can just go over some of your critical issues.
Sure. I think firstly I'd like to start by pointing out that Scarborough residents, and inclusive of Scarborough Wexford residents, pay approximately 25% of their property taxes to Metro for services that are needed, certainly in all the varying municipalities. In addition, Scarborough is inclusive. The fact of the matter is that the majority of those particular services are actually focused on the Toronto area. That is to say that those services that Metro and Scarborough residents are paying for essentially are largely performed and largely function in the Toronto area. So one has to recognize in terms of issues that Scarborough is not adequately served vis-a-vis the Metro Council as a body as it is right now. In addition to that, with respect to the issues, it's a question of ensuring and the decision with respect to measures of safety for the community as such. One of the things that a lot of the residents in Scarborough Wexford have addressed to me is the situation of crime on individuals as well as crime on the properties of individuals. There are so many residents who I've spoken with who have recently had break-ins into their homes and apartment buildings and so on. Essentially, it's a fortified mentality, and I think that what we need to do with respect to Metro government is to address preventative measures with respect to safety, certainly for property and for the individuals. The fact of the matter is, Kevin, that you can't rely on the police just to come in after the fact. Largely, the police is there to certainly provide safety, but they can't be everywhere at all times. They are right now largely understaffed. So that is an issue which is very important to the community, and that's an issue that I feel that Metro has to really focus its attention in terms of the desired and the needed resources that the policing community needs in order to provide effective services for the community as such. The additional thing that I feel that is important with respect to issue, and certainly that has been discussed with the community, they're talking about and we're talking about generating business opportunities for residents of Scarborough, Wexford, and in addition to Metro as a whole. Because we're looking at Metro, the relationship, coordinating services and so on. So when we talk about Scarborough, Wexford, we have to look at Scarborough, Wexford, and also the other areas in terms of the fit for Metro. So those are some of the issues as such. The other thing that we're looking at as well, we're looking at the youth factor in terms of Metro, the GTA. We have to ensure that the younger members of our population are taught to respect certainly themselves, and also are taught to respect the laws as certainly they govern our conduct in our society. In Scarborough, Wexford, certainly a part of Metro, we want to ensure that these things are actually brought into the focus and the forefront. Those are the issues, I believe, and those are the reasons why I'm running in this particular election as such for Metro Council.
Okay, that's excellent. And I suppose just sort of maybe to sum things up, maybe some things we haven't touched on yet, given the campaign, and we still have a few weeks to go, of course, to November 14th. But any thoughts that you have sort of the campaign so far, and the election in the space to come of the campaign?
Yeah, I do actually. I think that, for example, in this particular election, it's a question with respect to what candidate actually defines what the varying issues and the required roles of elected representatives are. It's no longer a question where residents, for example, in the past, are used to just voting for a name because they've heard that name before and they remember that at the last minute because they're confused with respect to the number of offices that they're required to vote for. What I'm being told at the door is that, Michael, look, we used to vote just because we knew a name from the past and so on. But now we're no longer going to do that. We're going to review, take a look at the issues and see how they impact in terms of what the candidates are actually saying. And certainly with respect to how those issues reflect on their lives and their concerns and their views and so on. So that's what people are actually talking about. That's what they're looking at and so on. And essentially, you know, I want to make sure that the Scarborough Wexford resident, and certainly for the residents of Scarborough, that their voices are actually represented at Metro, and not the situation where I'm now familiar with, where Metro's voice is actually returned and represented to the community. I think it's a situation where people must understand, and those people, being elected representatives, must understand it's no longer the interests of government that they need to represent to communities. It's the community's interests that they must represent to government. That's the way it has to be, because at the end of the day, the taxpayers are the final decision maker, and they should be, because they're the guys that are actually paying the bill, footing the bill. Metro, again, spends $3.8 billion of taxpayers' monies, and it should be looked upon in terms of the actual impact and the needs, not with respect to government saying, this is what you need, and this is what we're going to provide you, because it seems to me that common sense doesn't seem to exist any longer in government. So those are the issues, and I think it's definitely time for a change. I think it's definitely time for new leadership that is going to ensure that government understand what communities needs and what residents needs, also that there's a combined effort of residents being empowered to do and to act accordingly as they're required and their needs are.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us, Michael. That was very informative. I'm sure
Great.
the voters, I hope, found that very interesting. Let's not forget, if you have any questions for Michael Thompson, the campaign office number is 291-5599. It's located near Kennedy and Ellesmere in the plaza there. Give us a call anytime. Michael is pleased always to answer questions of anybody that calls. So as we can see, as we wrap this up, representation matters, community matters, issues matter, and we hope on November 14th you'll remember Michael Thompson for Metro Council in Scarborough, Wexford. Thanks. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ralph Potter. I'm presently vying for the position of Metro Councillor in the ward commonly known as Scarborough-Wexford. That's the Scarborough City Ward 3 and the Scarborough City Ward 10 combined. I was prompted to enter this race for Metro Councillor by a number of friends of mine when we were discussing politics in my store. The subject came up as to who was running, and when it arose, we said, well, I can do a better job than those two gentlemen. The reason I say that is that I've been in Scarborough for approximately 34 years. I've lived in Scarborough, I've worked in Scarborough, and now I'm presently raising a family in Scarborough. I'm very concerned with the amount of violence that has arisen in the Scarborough area, and especially in my neighborhood. It seems to me it's predominantly more in the North Scarborough around the 401. Obviously, we need to increase our police presence in these areas, and we must get these bad guys off the streets. Why does somebody go into politics out of a varied background that I've had? I'm brand new at this. I'm going to make mistakes. I trust you'll bear with me in my endeavor. The reason I entered the race is I think I can do just as good a job, if not better, and I would hope better, than those that are running against me. I've seen the results of the lifestyle deteriorate in Scarborough over the past 10, 15 years, even 30 years. I went to school in this neighborhood. I was never afraid to walk the streets at night. Mind you, in those days we had a curfew at 9 o'clock, which doesn't seem to be a bad idea to me, again, for anybody under 16. I've worked in the area, I've raised a family, and I'm presently raising a family, and I am afraid of what will befall my children in their lifestyle as they're growing up in Scarborough. It's not safe. Those of you who have lived here longer than I have, and there's many of you in these two wards, you're afraid to go out at night now. And that's sad. We used to have a very safe city. Obviously, there's been too much trimming of the police budget, and that's my #1 beef with Metro Council. Number 2, I would like to know why they waste our tax dollars on frivolous items. A case in point was about 3 weeks ago when they opted to donate $5,000 to a film festival next May. Well, I don't care whose film festival is or what group it belonged to, but if I'm going to have a party, I don't particularly ask somebody else to buy the booze for it. And I'm sure you would appreciate the fact that our dollars should be much better spent than given away for somebody's party. We've seemed to have an increase in violence on the subways of late, the subways and the TTC lines in general. Somehow or other, we have to increase our police presence to either break up the gangs of kids, and they're not all kids, a lot of them are over the 18 mark, so-called legal young citizens who know better. We must break these gangs up. We must disperse these people from congregating in either the subways or the buses or even the plazas. Now, fortunately, some of our local malls have instituted a very heavy security program to try and offset this. But once they're rooted out of the plazas, then they congregate on the streets. And there's got to be a change made so that people aren't frightened to go either through a group like this or past them. We've wasted other funds in other areas, and I can think of a prime example is our Bay Street bus terminal. We spent over $100 million, I believe was the figure, to have a state-of-the-art bus terminal, and now we find out it's not going to work. Somebody made a grave error. Our Shepherd subway has been put on hold. The excuse is we don't have enough money for it right now. I think if we trim some money out of other areas, we probably could finish that Shepherd subway, this eastern wing, and tie the whole network in with the rest of the city the way it was originally designed. Obviously, it would be a boon to those in these two ridings as well as those ridings farther east in Scarborough. I would like to be a Metro councillor responsible to the people that elected me, not responsible to Metro Council. I figure that if you're the voter, you're the taxpayer, you put me in this job, then I should be accountable to you. And I should be accessible to you. How many times have you seen the little report card the Sun prints the odd time about Metro Council? And there's numerous times you see the DNV, or did not vote. Those people either were tied up elsewhere, supposedly on other functions, or they just skipped the meeting because it might have been a thorny issue. I won't do that. I refuse to duck thorny issues. If I'm right, fine, then you'll agree with me and you're the people who elected me. If I'm wrong, then you can tell me and I'll reverse my stand. In the other area I'd like to see a solution is the inequity in business taxes. Our business taxes in the city of Scarborough are much too high in conjunction with the taxes to the north of us or those to the east of us. As a result, we've lost numerous businesses out of Scarborough who've gone north of Steeles or east of into Pickering. Why is this the case? I don't know that right now. If I could be apprised of all the paperwork that Metro Council has, maybe I could come up with some answers. My two opponents, I know a lot of one. In my mind, I like to categorize him as part of the old boys network. The other fella, Mr. Thompson, is a rookie as far as I know, just the same way I am. And I don't know enough about him. I will find out, definitely. But that's another area I'd like to do something about. It seems to me that when people are elected to these positions, something turns their brain to mush. They either enter into the old boys network and all they do is like to live off the fat of the land, which is the taxpayers' money. I don't propose to do that. I propose to be accountable to the people that elected me and accessible to them. And I thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name is Peter Skopek. I'm here today as a concerned voter. Like you, I would like responsible government. It's very difficult these days to assess the candidates and figure out just who is best for the position. I'm here today because I think I have found someone, that person that I feel will give responsible government and get the job done. And his name is Norm Kelly. Norm, you have a policy paper here. It's quite extensive. And one of the issues is crime. Could you give us an idea of what you believe is the best way to combat crime?
Well, Peter, that's the number one subject at the doors in the riding of Scarborough-Wexford. And of course, I'm standing for the office of Metropolitan Councillor in the riding of Scarborough-Wexford, and the boundaries of that riding are Finch Avenue down to Eglinton, Victoria Park over to Birchmount Road. Crime, Peter, is everywhere. There isn't a neighborhood that I've knocked in or I haven't talked to someone who's had a problem with crime or criminals. Breaking and entering of the house, breaking and entering of their garage, their cars, some muggings in the street or attempted rapes in the neighborhood or kids being beaten up or being swarmed. Peter, crime is endemic in our society today and in Scarborough. I regret to hear that because 10 years ago I was the first politician in Scarborough who stood up publicly and said that while Scarborough was a nice place to live in, that a crime wave was coming and that we had better be prepared for it because it's easier to deal with crime before it arrives than to deal with it afterwards. And I'm afraid right now we're going to have to deal with it afterwards. But it certainly is the number one issue in the parts of Scarborough that I've been through, north and south of the 401 in Ward 10 and Ward 3. And that's why that's the number one issue in our pamphlet. Now, issues are easy to identify. It's easy for any candidate to say, well, the issues are crime, high taxes, and unemployment. Those are the easy things to say. The hard thing to come up with are the policies that address those issues. And in that policy statement that you have in your hand are a half a dozen ideas that I believe will address the issue of rising crime, not only in Scarborough, but right across metropolitan Toronto. And they're not vague ideas. They're not wishy-washy ideas. These are specific, concrete things we can do to fight and control crime in metropolitan Toronto.
Okay. Under the title here, More Police, considering the budget, and we're not supposed to have any more police, how do we overcome the fact that we do need more police?
Well, defense is the number one priority of government. No matter how many other jobs government does, the very first job that it has to do is provide protection to its citizens. So at a time when you're cutting budgets, I would argue that you don't cut all budgets equally, that there are some budgets you may actually increase while you're decreasing the budgets of other departments. For example, there's something like $10 to $20 million that Metropolitan Toronto puts out on grants of one sort or another. You know, what's that theater downtown, Good Times for Bad Buddies, or whatever. I wouldn't give them any money. I'd put that money into the police force. So I would actually redeploy funds that are already in the system and move it over to the police budget without adding an additional tax cent. Second thing I would do is I would redeploy the police inside the police department. I think it's important for us to re-examine the role of the police officer in our society. Now, I'm very supportive of the police officer, and frankly, I look at a policeman in the same way that I look at a lawyer or a doctor. That's a professional person. And just as a lawyer or a doctor doesn't do his own secretarial work, and just as paramedicals and paralegals are now coming into those professions, I believe that the policeman should be stripped of any of the jobs that aren't directly related to policing and let the clerical work and the para-police work, like traffic work, traffic accident work, be given to others. So shift your budget priority over to the police department, redefine and redeploy the resources that you already have in the police department. I think if you do those things, you will get more policemen on the street.
Okay, your second item here in the brochure is cut taxes. Do you really think you can cut taxes?
Well, I know that politicians at the city and the metro level have tried very hard to keep taxes at a zero increase level. They've been very proud of that. They've gone to the electorate and they've said, listen, for 3 straight years, we haven't increased your taxes. Isn't that terrific? The problem with that approach is that it's a Band-Aid approach. It's It's we'll cut and paste here and there and pray that the good times will return. My argument is that the good times are not of the sort that we knew in the past, are not going to return. Or if they do, they are going to come and go on a more irregular basis, and that sustained boom that we enjoyed in the past won't be there. So what we have to do in government is move beyond the cut and paste and look at some fundamental reforms. Peter, over 200 cities across North America have cut taxes on average by 13% and at the same time improved services. Is there any reason why we can't do that? Are we any less deserving? Are we any less creative than these other cities? I think if you look at the fundamental restructuring of government, rather than the scissors and paste type approach, then you can get the economies that will allow us to reduce taxes.
Your third item is create jobs. I noticed down here that what you have is the vicious circle: unemployment, rising crime, high taxes. Now we come to unemployment.
Well, you know, that's metropolitan Toronto today. Rising crime, high taxes, and high unemployment. You'll notice that almost all of Canada and the rest of Ontario has begun to bounce back from the recession, except metropolitan Toronto. We are the exception. At one point, we were the exception because we were the most prosperous. Now we're the exception because we're behind all the other parts of Canada in bouncing back from the recession. Why is that? It's because we have rising crime and high taxes. Do you realize that a businessman can find a site outside of Toronto and have taxes that are 1/7 the tax of a business person inside Toronto? You know, that means in some instances that a businessman can relocate from Toronto to Vaughan or Pickering or Mississauga and save enough money to pay off his mortgage. In those situations, why would anyone stay in Toronto? So one of our first priorities is to cut high taxes. We have to understand the link between high taxes in metropolitan Toronto and high unemployment. If we can't control high taxes, we will not be able to retain or attract new businesses to Toronto. If we cannot control rising crime, the business middle class will simply pick up its bags and leave. So without getting into any fancy and expensive make-work programs funded by Metro or the cities or the province or the city of, or the government of Canada, I would argue that in cutting taxes and in reducing crime, we will have taken the two major steps towards creating employment and saving jobs in metropolitan Toronto.
Very good. What I would like to know, just getting back to the police, is team policing. This is something that has been raised before. I've heard about it, but just what is your idea of team policing?
Well, this is an exciting idea. It's an idea. Everyone knows what community policing is. Get the police out of the big police stations and into the community. And what I did was I came up with a new concept, and I called it team policing. When you bring the police into the neighborhood, marry them up with people who are already there and working for the community. Marry them up with the clergy, with teachers, with social workers, with youth workers. Make a team out of it. And if you can have that team approach, and you have a team in each community, then surely you will have people that are covering every aspect of life in that neighborhood. And if we can do that, we will be fighting crime. And it's a hell of a lot easier and cheaper to fight crime than it is to fight criminals and build prisons down the line.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Norm Kelly. And thank
Peter.
you.
Hello, everyone. With me is Diamond Tobin-West, who's running as a candidate in the Melbourne Scarborough Ward for Metro Council. I'll be asking Diamond a few questions on the issues that are most important to the people of Metropolitan Toronto, and especially the Malvern riding. Some of the subjects I'll be asking him about is the safety of the public, jobs, high taxes, the environment, and a few other subjects like seniors, youth. And to begin with, I'm going to ask Diamond about the issue of high taxes.
Thank you very much, Jim. Taxes, as it is presently in Canada, there are some that are being handled by the federal government, some that are being handled by the provincial government, and others by the municipal government. First, I'm going to start with property taxes. Property taxes in Metro at this point is not even. In Scarborough, Malvern, we are paying excessive taxes. I do believe that it is time Metro Toronto equalize property